So back at the boat situation. Um, so John and Lee and their lobster friend Crackler have just boarded this boat that they got guided to by their hawk friend Jeffrey, who had gotten them to meet up with these crustacean people, who are these two big mother crabs that have sort of insects crawling all over them, and they also have like these shellfish and barnacles on them and this sort of thing that are part of their ecosystem. Remember, these mother crabs are like these walking ecosystems of lots of different kinds of chemical factories all over them that sort of do their various trade operations. And this large machine that's supposed to be able to translate the crab language is what they're told. And but of course the humans that they're with. Oh, and of course they have their ram. They have and she's getting a little bit more spunk to her character now as she has been fascinated by this whole journey on the surface. And again, her name is Vestibula, and so and she's in this crab shell, which of course the mother crabs just think it's so funny that they've got this little baby ram hanging out in a crab shell. Of course, the mother crabs can tell it's not a crab, and but it's their cover that they need in order to get the ram through any of the human or serpent or insect people. And the crabs sort of play different sides of all sorts of things. Remember, because the crabs are the people who are supplying this all kinds of narcotics apparently to the deer people, and which is causing environmental hazards. And the deer are addicted and they can't fly anymore because of this. They have all these addictions to these narcotics. And but John has just had this stuff. Remember, Lee got the blue stingray stuff. That, remember, they traded some herbs outside of the restaurant. So now Lee is in more direct contact with EL, and we'll get back to him in a little bit with what's going on. So they're getting a little bit more connection now, and with psychically with Lee, who's gonna apparently gonna come have some. He's on the East Coast. Is gonna have some meetup later. And but John had gotten this stuff that's supposed to allow him to have better perception of language of the different creatures around him. And initially, he says, I already know crab language. We got baby crabs back home, and we talk to the crabs on the shore all the time, and he can talk to the crabs, no problem. But the crab people, or the crab person, and I think there was a reptilian with him as well, and they tell me, no, well, this is going to allow you to learn all sorts of it. And then John says, okay, yeah, because he started learning languages from the wolves earlier. He was interested in learning them, but he hadn't quite figured it out yet. So he's like, yeah, I want to take this stuff that's going to help me learn this more easily. And so he's noticing right away as they're getting on the boat that he can perceive more than what he would ordinarily be able to perceive from crabs with their usual clicks, and he can tell that they're talking to each other, in that these two mother crabs are talking to each other about things in almost like a covert code where only the crab people, or these people who have this substance. Oh, and by the way, John is told that this stuff that he took it comes from baby snake, these little baby rainbow snakes, and so the molecule is only produced in the brains of the baby snakes, because then they only need it for as long as they need for these baby snakes to be able to learn all the languages of the creatures around them. Once they learn the languages, they don't produce the chemical anymore. So it takes a lot of these baby snakes to get this little bit about this stuff that then is active in humans, where humans can then learn, like a baby snake, how these different creatures are talking. So they get in there into the boat, and it's an entertainment boat. They have all sorts of beverages and food and music going, and John is a little overwhelmed feeling, because he can feel and he can see and tell what all of these different creatures are talking about, and he sees these scorpion people, and he's like, oh, I've been worried about the scorpion people, stays away from them, but he can hear what all of these different reptilians and insects, and he doesn't see many humans on the boat, and he's a little bit sketch about the humans, because he's been warned about these, and he's been warned really. He's had his prior encounter with the Northerner humans, and he can tell that they're kind of funny people that might be lying to him about being from the future is what they told him before, which they may or may not have been. He still doesn't know, but he gets the sense that these Northerners have a different. They're out for entertainment, but he knows that he's on this mission with his friends, and so he doesn't know if it's a cultural thing or if it's just because that's they're not in as grave of a situation as epic of a situation as John's finding himself. So he goes back and he sits and he's just kind of watching the scene. He sees a screen on there, and it shows it's a news broadcast, right? And so it has these people are telling about. This woman comes on and they have this narration, and they show this footage of the oasis that he was just at, and it shows there he sees Yunusari rolling around in the fire ants and doing her dance and with the bear people, the desert bears are there, and they're doing this dance, and the newscasters comes on like the legendary creature is seen in the desert oasis and this kind of thing, and then they cut to a scene and they say, and meanwhile up north in the mining areas they've spotted a ram they haven't seen a ram in decades, and so he's getting the sense that there's this other people in the world are aware that there's something going on, and then they bring on these commentators onto the news broadcast, and they start speculating about how there's we may be coming into an age of the ram, that this has been prophesized for all this long time about how a ram would come out of a mountain, and legendary creatures would start appearing again and this sort of thing. And he's like, oh my gosh, really, I am in something very powerful that's happening here. And everybody on this boat is just having fun with their scorpion powders and whatnot. So he goes back and he sits down with Lee and is like, man, this stuff, I can tell what everybody's talking about in here, and they're all pretty clueless, aren't they? It doesn't. The humans are all, they seem like they're, just as addicted as these deers are to this stuff that these scorpion people are, and crab people are running around with, and all this stuff. And he's like, but and they're talking about how they have these mixed feelings about this new society that they're entering, because they themselves are taking some of these, this snake stuff is giving him this ability to perceive what's even going on, and likewise Lee has this blue stingray stuff that's putting him in contact with his twin.